Are we live? All right, man. All right, we're live. Welcome to Cash Media. I know it's been a minute. But you know what? NBA season is done, and I wanted to get a video up here because I haven't streamed in a while. Um, and I know the NBA playoffs is about to commence here pretty soon, starting here on Saturday. Um, and there's going to be a lot of key matchups, to look forward to. So expect some more videos moving forward. I'm definitely gonna, tap back in, especially with the NBA playoffs up and running. But it's time to get things moving, man. I want to talk about a lot of things in regards to the NBA and in sports in general. So if you guys are tuning in, welcome back to Cash Media. We were formerly known as Cash Sports, but I'm trying to, broaden my horizons, talk about a couple of different things. But in regards to this video alone, we're just gonna be talking some NBA today, just to have some nostalgia. So, the NBA MVP. All right, let's talk about that. Right. I would say that this NBA season was how can I put it? Relatively confusing, I would say. It was definitely a different NBA season. We had the play-in, which was the first, not the play-in, sorry, the in-season tournament, right? In another video, we're gonna talk about that. I'm gonna get a little bit deeper about that and what I thought about it and how it can get better moving forward. But just to chime in on that, I do like the idea of the in-season tournament. And also, with the teams or with the current standings that we have now, right? Like it relatively came down to a really close call between a couple teams in the first for the first seed, especially in the West, right? So when it comes down to the NBA MVP, people that are obviously the finalists are Jokic, Shaw Gill on OKC, Luka Doncic, Giannis, and then some people have thrown out Jalen Brunson's name in there. And was there somebody else? And possibly Jason Tatum. But I don't think this was really Jason Tatum's year to really be MVP. Don't get me wrong, he had an outstanding season. I think he had a really good year. But in regards to MVP alone, I don't think he had the numbers to even compete with somebody like Jokic or even Shaw Gill in some instances, right? Um, and definitely not Luca because Luca was just playing outrageous this year, right? So we know that the NBA implemented a new rule where you basically have to play, or not even basically, you have to play 65 games this year in order for you to be eligible for any outstanding awards, all NBA selections, things of that nature. So I'm for the rule, honestly. I mean, anything that can kind of get players to play more, or at least so we can see them more on the court. I don't think anybody should have any room to complain about that whatsoever. I think it's sad that there had to be a rule for something like that, but at the end of the day, it is what it is. But going back to the NBA MVP award, right? So I'm just gonna flat out say it like my NBA MVP selection would be Luka Doncic, right? I think Luka Doncic deserves it this year. I think he played phenomenal, and that's not to say everybody else didn't, right? Like Jokic, he obviously was putting up the same numbers that he relatively had in previous years and in his other MVP years. Shaw Gill, I would probably have to say, probably shocked most people when it comes to his situation. With OKC being the youngest team in the league and being one of the best teams in the league. And when you really break down what Shaw has been doing, from an individual standpoint, he's literally putting up numbers similar to MJ, right? Like 30 points, 50% field goal from the court, and not to mention though too, he's been leading the league in steals for the majority of the year, but he tied up with De'Aaron Fox as the season closed, right? So Shaq Gill is having an incredible year, right? Like I feel like if there wasn't a situation with what Luka is doing, I think Shaq Gill might have a good shot at winning NBA MVP. Like I'm not saying that Shaq Gill, stat for stat can go against Jokic. Like I completely understand the argument for Jokic to win MVP, and there's no wrong choice here when it comes down to it. In some cases, there might be wrong decision, but Jokic, he's just kind of like that motor that you know, gives you the same numbers game in and game out, right? Like I don't really think it's much of an argument to say like Jokic isn't the best player in the league right now. Like, we gotta be honest here. And I know like my co-host, if he was on here right now, he'll definitely be talking about this, saying that Jokic is the best player in the league. But when it comes down to the MVP award, right? There's a lot of things to consider, and I try to take that into account, right? So my argument for Luka, right, is that he's just putting up tremendous numbers, right? He's putting up crazy numbers this year. He's averaging 34 points per game for the year, right? Which leads the entire league when it comes down to points per game. And he's averaging a damn near triple double with 9 rebounds and 9 assists a game, right? But it's not just that. It's not just that, right? Not to mention the fact that even though I understand that he is the fifth seed, but Jokic has won it on two separate occasions with him not being the first seed, right? And one of those times he was the sixth seed. So if that precedent has been set, then, moving forward, we have to have this conversation open to interpretation, right? So at the time, Jokic's record on the Nuggets was not more than 50 games, right? The Nuggets did not win more than 50 games that year. Luka, in his case, he won more than 50 games, right? And not to mention, he's just he's unworldly, bro. There's not really much to say about like what Luka can do. I genuinely think that he's unstoppable when it comes to him being on the court, right? I think Luka is just crazy, bro. He's going crazy this year. So, hey, appreciate that, boy. Appreciate the like, man. I know it's been a minute since I've hopped on here. Appreciate that. So you know, and I think it's about that time where Luca can actually get one. And I'm not trying to make this argument simply because of the fact that like Luca didn't win an MVP award, so he should get one now. I mean, he put up godly numbers, right? He played enough games, and a lot of the time, I feel like he had to step up to the plate, especially with Kyrie Irving missing a majority of the season, right? Kyrie, in a sense, if he had played enough games this year, I feel like he should be in that argument for all NBA selection, um, or even something out there as it pertains to him winning an award. Like Kyrie Irving is obviously that good, that great, and he deserves that sort of recognition, right? But the thing about it is that one, I think the Denver Nuggets have a better team than the Dallas Mavericks, even though the Dallas Mavericks considerably got better by adding crucial pieces like Gafford, who's leading the league this year in field goal percentage. PJ Washington, I think he was a great pickup from Charlotte, and he brings some tenacity, some fervor, and also he's a decent 3-point shooter as well. But when it comes down to just usage, um, his percentage around the rim, right? ISO points, like Luka is killing it in all aspects. Like they can't stop him once he shoots the ball in his hand, and not to mention like he's all over the place, man. He's all over the place. So I mean, it might not be the strongest argument, but I think it is an argument. I think it's an argument to consider. right? So if Jokic can win the MVP with under 50 wins, right, being the sixth seed, why can't Luka win it? That's my question, right? So moving forward, there are still a lot of things to consider, especially when it comes down to the MVP criteria, because we know that it switches, every year. Every year, somebody has a different argument about, who should be MVP and why. And I know sometimes I can probably have a different stance year by year, but I feel like it's truly subjective, right? But like I said, there's no wrong answer. If Jokic were to win MVP, then he's MVP, right? He deserved it. My stance, or my argument for Shai Gill to win MVP is because, for one, he probably has, I wouldn't say the worst team, but I would say at least out of Jokic, Luka, and Tatum. And I don't know how to look at the Milwaukee Bucks, but I'm gonna leave that situation aside. I think Shai Gill has the least experienced team. I'm not gonna say the worst team because I think OKC is a great team. You can't be a top seed in the West and not be a great team, right? So just because they're young doesn't mean they're the worst team, but they're the youngest team, right? So I think that's something to point out and take notice of, right? Nobody expected OKC to do anything this year, and on top of that, he's averaging 30 points per game this year, right? And he's doing it on both ends of the floor while shooting above 50% from the field, right? Shai Gill is literally doing something amazing. Like, he's looking like an all NBA first team player. Like, there's no argument for that, right? And he's only arrived. I think this is really just Shai Gill coming into his own. This is him emerging as an all NBA player. Like, there's no conversation for that, right? And this is not, you don't see a lot of situations like this where a young player can lead a young team from not even making the playoffs to being one of the best teams in the West, right? And we all know how the competition is in the West. It's there's a lot of star power in the West, right? So Giannis, right? He's also putting up crazy numbers. Jason Tatum, I feel like he's getting better every year, but I still feel like with Jason Tatum, there's still this hump that he needs to go over. And we know that Jason Tatum's a great player. But we're waiting for that sort of breakout year for Jason Tatum. Even though it feels like he's here. For me, right? I feel like there's a little bit more that Tatum can give us when it comes down to, his MVP argument. Right? And Anthony Edwards also had a great year. But like I said, man, my vote would go to Luka Doncic. And that would be that. I don't think there's really much to push back on. But then again, you can also make a point about anybody else when it comes to the MVP finals, right? So let me know what y'all think, man. Do y'all think Luka should win it? Do y'all agree? Do y'all think Jokic should win it? Or do you think somebody else should win it? Or what do you think about Shai Gill being at the forefront of this argument, right? So I want to hear y'all thoughts. I want to hear what you guys have to say. Let me know in the comment section. This is Cash Media. I'm just keeping it short for today, but I'm glad to be back here and touch bases with you guys again. And hopefully to see you guys here pretty soon. But there are going to be a lot more videos coming up in regards to the NBA playoffs. And I'm definitely going to be streaming here a lot more and getting things ramped up. So, hey, thank you guys for tuning in once again. Love you guys. Subscribe so you guys can get that notification whenever I tap in again. And then have a great one, man. Have a good Friday also.